man, life isn't over. There's still half of our life left to do things. And I'm like, what? For real? You in the band?
But the reality was that I was just like trying to figure out the next move.
All right, man, I like you guys even more
You
now,
don't
man.
discriminate, man. You killed me on that song. It's really good. But
You know, it's my show. It's just how we roll. I'm Scott DeVore. My close friends call me Free. You're listening to the Free Factor podcast. I'm with my main man, Jevon Chalwell, a.k.a. Chalwell, a good friend of mine. We've been kicking it here for the past year plus. You got a great story. You know, we got some topics that we're going to get into from your background as a entrepreneur, as a musician. We're also co-organizing an event coming up in January 2024 called Set Free, rocking the gear, got the swag going on. Dude, you didn't give me my swag.
dude, I told you it's coming. I'm sorry, bro. But yeah, go to the website, get some of this stuff. It's good stuff.
Setfree.co. But we'll get into that in more detail. But man, I really appreciate you coming on board. You know, I've been working on some content shooting this podcast. You know, it goes into multiple directions, but really it's a show about entrepreneurs, musicians, you know, the things that I'm kind of vibing with, things that I'm into, but really to tell a little bit about the story, but also to provide some value. And the theme of what I wanted to get into this show with you is seasons, like seasons of life. And I didn't really give you a whole lot of heads up on what direction I wanted to go, but you know, you got a great story, and I really want to pull out some of the, you know, the things that you are into, that you've been involved with, and kind of directionally where you've made some pivots. Because I feel like I've had a similar kind of trajectory. You know, we're both about the same age, you know, in our mid-40s. I know that you were making music a long time ago, been into it. You know, you're a corporate guy. You're an entrepreneur. That's how we met. I will tell that story. Maybe we'll kind of kick it from there. So just give like a little 30-second intro of who you are at a high level, and then maybe tell that story of how we met.
Okay.
And then we'll see where this thing goes.
All right, cool. So high level. My name's Jevon Chalwell. As Scott mentioned, I've been right now. I own a printing company called The Printing Well. Go to www.theprintingwell.com. Get all the things that you need if you're a business owner. Anyway, plug. Shameless plug. Sorry, bro.
Nah, man, it's all about plugging. You gotta plug away, bro.
Yeah, but honestly, you know, I've been a programmer for a few years now. I do programming for a pretty big bank out there.
Big multinational bank.
Multinational
Well
bank.
known.
Yeah. I also am a father of 3 going on 4 now.
Yep. Congrats on that.
Appreciate that. And, you know, I've been doing music for a little while now. I started doing music in my teens. And actually, I probably started earlier than that. My mom used to like have me stand up on this little step stool thing in church when I was a kid and sing in the mic. And I was probably horrible, but she always encouraged me. So, hey, it is what it is. But I started doing the kind of music that I do now in my teens, and been kind of doing music ever since. Started out kind of like a hobby and turned into a little something more. We'll kind of get into that story a little bit, but been doing that for a while. I currently have a band called Scarlet Letter Society. We will be at the Set Free show, but that's just a little bit in a high level of who I am and what I do. But honestly, I met Scott at
Florida State University, Jim Moran Institute, Small
So
Business Executive Program.
that business executive program was really good. I met a lot of people, learned a lot of information. One of the most important things that came out of that was probably connecting with Scott. Right, we became friends really quickly. When I first saw him, I had no clue who he was. I actually didn't even notice him the first day, to be honest with you.
Bro, man.
Yeah. Hey, listen,
And we sat right beside each other. You didn't notice me?
No, actually, the first day you sat across from me, I did, and the reason why I say that is because I think the second day you sat across from me too. We started talking on the third day.
Yeah,
we started talking on the second day. We sat next to each other on the third day. But I really didn't know a whole lot about him. He told me, you know what, he was into construction and all kinds of other stuff. And it was cool, really good, you know, meeting. I thought it was really just, you know, kind of a business acquaintance type thing. And then, you know, as we chatted a little bit, he's kind of quirky, guys. So if you didn't figure that out from some of the other podcasts, Scott's a bit different, right? So he's definitely adventurous in his decision making and some of the things that he does. And I found that to be interesting because I'm real similar in that way. But we talked a lot in the parking lot and all of that. And eventually we got on the phone and we both have a love for basketball. And I wanted to
I was
thank you.
hoping you bring it up because
Yeah.
how I used to dominate you.
Okay, so
The
are we
first,
gonna lie on the podcast too, or are we just gonna
dude,
be
the
honest?
first couple times you played, but then now you just been using your size over me, so it's not even fair anymore.
So honestly, I was just trying to make Scott feel good about himself because he seemed a little down in the dumps when I first met him. I was like, I'm gonna take him out to the court, let him pretend to beat me a couple of times, and then I'll dominate.
I really appreciate you coming on board
Of
because,
course.
we've been kicking it for the past year, and we got this event called Set Free. I'll kind of tell the genesis of Set Free, where I was going to this Christian hip hop concert
Mm-hmm.
hosted by Uncle Reese at Potter's House Church. So this is a really large urban church in Jacksonville. And I didn't know Uncle Reese back then, but they were doing this concert with some really well-known names within the industry, Christian hip hop industry, Bizzle, Dayton, Scooty Wop, Big Breeze is the God Over Money clique. And I remember we were just getting to know each other. I don't even think we hooped yet. And I was like, hey, man, you got plans? I'm going to this concert with my friend DJ Titus. And I know you were busy. It was like short notice. And you're like, no, I can't make it. Thanks for the invite. So you're not mentioning anything about your music background at all. And then I think a week later we connected. I think you dropped off something printing stuff that I needed for the company. And I think I told you about the show then, like, yeah, it was a good show. Sorry you couldn't make it. I don't even think you mentioned your music background even then, but probably 2 weeks later, we just started talking again. And I think you said, oh, by the way, did I mention I was in a band?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what, for real? You're in a band? And I don't even think you mentioned a Christian band.
Right.
And then you just sent me some of your links to Scarlet Letter Society,
Mm-hmm.
and I started checking it out. And I tell you what, man, your song amazing.
Yeah.
Man, that I felt that, like my spirit felt that. And I was
Wow.
like, man, I already thought you were a cool dude already. But then to see that and see that you're in this band and the music videos that you guys had put together, I'm like, man, I like this guy. And then we started just talking about, Christian music, Christian hip hop and all that. So I'm kicking it with Titus. We've been going to a bunch of Christian hip hop events in town. And I just remember, just having this seed put in me and like, what does it take to put something together for, an event? Because, I got the DJ background and I felt like Titus, I loved the way he mixed, and that's how him and I connected.
Right.
And then I thought of this event of, DJs, Christian hip hop MCs, artists, whatever, coming together for an event. And I mentioned it to you, like, hey man, I'm thinking about putting something together. And, would you like want to, be involved with it and somehow? And you're 100% down. So I really appreciate that.
Of course.
And now here we are, months later. We got the venue set, we got the design, we got merch out now. Only one merch. You didn't give me my hoodie, but we got flyers. We actually came here earlier today. We're in Mix Theory Studio kicking it with DJ PM, Jesus Vivar, and we were just putting the final touches on our radio ad that's going to be played on Holy Culture and Sirius XM. It's going to be put out on Spotify and Apple Music and Pandora, all the stuff.
We're about to flood every place that you go with just ads. So you'll see us, don't worry.
But we really want to promote that. So Set Free it's a CHH concert, January 27, 2024. And we got a really big name in Christian hip hop music. What Up RG?
Yeah.
Reach Records. He was nominated for Album of the Year, Dove Award. I thought he should have won because this is probably one of the great sonically, lyrically, Christian hip hop albums. Not even just within Christian hip hop. I mean, I love all hip hop, but I've really just been more focused on Christian hip hop over the last 10 years. Phenomenal album. He has a phenomenal background. Just his story is very inspirational. His parents are Mexican.
Yeah.
He had to deal with his father getting deported. I know a little bit about that. Like my mom's, one of her ex-husband got deported. So I kind of felt him on that, and just like listening to his flow, it's just phenomenal. So he's coming and headlining, but we also have you and your band, Scarlet Letter Society, doing your thing there, which is going to be phenomenal. And you guys bring a different sound.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Scarlet Letter. Talk about Set Free a little bit, then let's transition into Scarlet Letter Society and how all that and that season of getting into that.
Yeah, that's crazy. So what ended up happening, I actually was a rapper before. Yeah, so that's the style of music that I started out in. It was predominantly rap, hip hop, and I'm from the Caribbean also. So There's some Caribbean and Latin flavors kind of inside of what I used to do as a solo artist. But started out actually doing a lot of probably destructive music. You know, in my teens, I was kind of a different kind of person. You know, then, you know, I became a Christian and things changed. And so as my music is true to my heart and my life and what I do and my beliefs, so did the lyrics and the content change, right? So I think in my like or late teens, like 19, early 20s, stuff like that. A lot of changes started happening in my life, and I really didn't even want to do music anymore. I had a lot of friends that did music. I had a lot of opportunity to actually make it in the mainstream industry way back then. Some stories about that, but we won't get into that today. But I ended up meeting some people when, you know, I started doing Christian music, Christian hip hop, that really wanted to get into just making a record, trying to touch people, reach people with the message that we were bringing. And I started doing that. And I met this one guy who was a guitarist, but he also did a lot of like hip hop tracks and stuff. And they were really good because the guy wasn't just, grabbing samples and mixing them, but he knew how to do that. And then he was also, a pianist, a guitarist, and he was doing some great stuff. One day, one of my favorite groups was the Roots. So back in the day, I was always a big Roots fan, man. The Roots are great. Questlove, Black Thought was always one of my favorite lyricists. And I reached out to him. I said, man, I've always wanted to do a live event, with a live band. So we got a couple of guys together that he knew. We went out and did an event. And it was crazy because when we did this particular event, and it's funny, Uncle Reese was at that first event that I'm going to be hosting the Set Free event. Yeah. So if you know Uncle Reese, he'll be there. You should be there too. But it's so crazy. We were at that event. We did 2 songs at that event, and the people there went crazy. Like, it was such a big hit because our styles are so different, right? So,
were you guys official Scarlet Letter Society back then?
No, we were just doing one event. That was it. That was the whole idea was let's do one event and then that's it, After we did that event, someone came up to us and like, hey, can you guys come to this thing and do another event? We're like, okay. So we went, we practiced a little bit more, did another song, went to that event, same thing happened. Another person said, hey, can you go to this event? Next thing you know, we're like in the middle of Jacksonville downtown, like doing events in front of all of these people, right? And like in the middle of our event, this like pastor from a church in St. Augustine came up and gave me his phone number and said, call me, right? So we ended up doing an event at their church. And at that point, we'd probably done about 6 or 7 events. And we were like, look, we might as well become a band. We're practicing every week. We're doing events after events. And we ended up becoming a band. I think the interesting thing about our band is that everyone comes from a different walk of life. Our band is called Scarlet Letter Society because if you think about the book, The Scarlet Letter, right? If you've ever read it, it's about a lady who had committed the act of adultery, and they placed this letter A on her to kind of label her or target her for being an adulteress, and they kind of scorned her, shunned her, put her aside or whatever. And that's just the nice way of saying it, I guess you can say. It was a little bit more violent than that. But I guess for us, when we think about it as Christians in the past, it was one of those things where there was always a stigma about Christianity, where if you're a Christian, you're supposed to be pure and clean. And, everybody that may have issues or hang-ups or things that they're dealing with in their life, they may feel like, well, I can't belong to that group because I'm jacked up, right? And it's like, the reality is that we're all jacked up. It doesn't matter if you're Christian or not.
You're preaching right now, bro.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. But we're all jacked up, and we all have our own scarlet letter, whether it's adultery, whether it's whatever it is that you're dealing with in your life. And the message of the gospel is that you can't save yourself. You can't fix yourself. You can't do any of that stuff on your own. It's because of what Christ did that you can even find that place in God, or that place of peace and rest and all that. So without going into detail on all of that stuff, the reality is that our message and our music are for people that are all jacked up like we are. You know what I mean? Yeah. We are a society of people with scarlet letters and issues and hang-ups, but for the grace of God, man, we're messed up and we're a mess. But that's the reason why the name of our band is what it is. And the beautiful thing I think about our band is we're a multicultural band. We've got people from a lot of backgrounds and races and all of that stuff in the band itself. And our music is multi-genre, right? So we've got people with rock background and people with, that Caribbean, more Latin feel, and somehow it works, like it's organically working. You know what I mean? We didn't go in there and say, let's grab these different people together and try to make this melting pot. but it just came together, and it's a beautiful gumbo. So every song you'll hear some of those. We've got a staple sound, which is basically alternative rock with hip hop. But there's so many little flavors that we tend to mix in, and I think it's a great sound, man.
All right, here's a question. But you
Please.
don't represent any Asians in the band, though.
Actually, we kind of do.
Oh, you did? Okay.
We had.
I thought you say no, so I'm like, I was like inviting myself.
No. Well, you know
be
what?
Part of the
Listen,
the
you're always invited, no matter what, brother. You can come to the barbecue. But no, we actually, he's not with the band right now. He's actually kind of sick. But we had a guitarist named Andy who is Asian, and yeah.
All right, cool,
so,
man.
yeah,
All right,
it's
man.
a lot.
I like you guys even more
You
now.
don't discriminate,
man.
man.
So I'm gonna talk about a season because you lightly touched on it where you were talking about you were making worldly music, disruptive, I think is the word that you used. But then you also started making like Christian hip hop, rap music for a season. But then you transitioned to, you know, the sound that you guys have with Scarlet Letter. I know there's that kind of the rap influence in it, but was there did you feel like a calling or direction to go from more of a rap Christian artist into the rock side? How did that work in your life?
Yeah, man, great. We sat down and we thought, nah, it was just an accident. It was an accident, man. We were just making the music that we love, experimenting. You know what I mean? Like for me, you know, being black and living in America and being raised in America, it was kind of, especially back in when I was growing up, right? Like nowadays, like you can almost do anything, right? It doesn't matter what race or anything you are, and it's a beautiful thing. There was a lot of stigma around liking music that was not culturally black when I was younger, right? So I had to listen to R&B or hip hop, you know what I'm saying, in order to fit in with my peers, right? But the reality is that there was a lot of old school rock stuff that I loved sonically. I didn't even know I loved it like I loved it until I felt the freedom to really express it out loud, right? Which was as an adult. But man, I used to listen to Guns N' Roses stuff. I used to listen to Aerosmith. I used to, you know, because it came on MTV. I'd turn it, you know what I'm saying? But I really liked the sound. You know, I like Queen. I like Beatles stuff. I like all kinds of stuff. So
nice.
Now later on in life, I've been able to return back to those things that I like and be able to hear it and really be able to latch onto it and really understand, you know that, you know, I mean, it's really about being authentic as an individual and not worrying about what other people are saying about you or what they're gonna, you know, do or make you feel like, you know, you're not part of the in crowd or whatever. And I feel like that's the one thing that has changed me the most with our band is getting to that place to where I've made myself vulnerable, even to people who knew me in the past that were like, surely you're not making rock. You know what I'm saying? But nah, man. I mean, I have a lot of friends that some of them, they rock with what I do. Some of them are like, I could live without that. You know what I'm saying? But it's undeniable, whether it's your cup of tea or not, that the sound and the skills and the things that we're doing are really good. And at the end of the day, it's really about, you know, us doing what we're feeling God is leading us to do and reaching the people that he wants us to reach. So that's it.
Now, when you were like really getting into, when you started doing those shows, I mean, you were kicking it with some of like the original guys in the CHH genre. You know, we mentioned Uncle Reese and you know, some other local guys, Brinson and those guys who were, what's the word? They were the pioneers. You know, part of that pioneer, like when, you know, Lecrae started, you know, back a decade ago. Yeah. Tell kind of what was it like back then?
Man, it was really different, man. I feel like there was a lot going on with the Christian hip hop. Almost like Christian hip hop, kind of like mainstream hip hop has its golden era where it kind of broke through that ceiling and became more of like a commercial hit, so to speak, right? And in the Christian genre, Christian hip hop, there was a time back in that day. It was like if you did Christian rap, you were the devil, bro. Like it was like it didn't matter who you was reaching. It doesn't matter if you were really like reaching the lost and people that were like probably the derelicts of society, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? What people would call them. You know what I'm saying? But they were just people like everybody else. The same people in the pews were the same people out there. You know what I mean? And it was like, but you were always rejected for doing that because that was supposedly, you know, not God's music or whatever, right? But it was doing so much good. You know what I'm saying? People felt so displaced as young people, and they didn't have anywhere to go or people that they could talk to or that they related to. And the music that we were doing at that time was like, that was the soundtrack of their life, right? Because some people were like, you know, they were either young people in the church who couldn't rock with what their parents were doing, or they were people that maybe wanted to make a change but didn't know where to go because they couldn't rock with what was happening in the church. You know what I'm saying? And I think we gave them a place, we gave them a voice, we gave them something to latch onto. And in that time, man, it was crazy because there was so much going on. And I was young. I just, you know, started, you know, kind of walking in this whole new Christian thing, and I didn't really know a whole lot. But I was on fire. I would talk to everybody. I'd be downtown, like just talking to homeless people and giving out food and just trying anybody that would listen to me. I would talk to them because I fell in love with something that happened to me, right? And I knew everybody needed it. But I met a lot of people. I mean, the guy that one of the biggest, you know, Christian hip hop magazines, Rapzilla, who pioneered that, the guy that pioneered that, Phillip Rood, we became good friends early on. I mean, God was just opening doors for me and the guys that were setting this stuff up. And, you know, I was, you know, going on tour and doing all kinds of stuff, and I had just gotten married and all kind of stuff was happening. And the reality is that one of the things that kind of slowed me down, I think a lot of my friends, you know, they kept going in the music and have done some really great things, right? You know, they've touched a lot of people. They do really big concerts. And, you know, we've had connections with, you know, the Reach Records and, you know, Cross Movement back in the day was one of the big ones as well. And a lot of other artists. And some of them are still active in the music industry. But for me, I think one of the decisions that I needed to make, because I had a conflict going on in my heart, was whether I was going to be doing this really and genuinely wholeheartedly for people, or whether I was doing this to be Christian famous, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what everybody else's conflicts were, if they even had a conflict with that. But for me, that was my conflict. And I was out there like selling CDs, trying to feed my family, you know what I mean? And going on tour, trying to feed my family. I remember coming back home and flying into Jacksonville after being on tour in Minneapolis. And I was like, I didn't know what the next move was. I didn't have any more shows set up. I have a new record or anything like that. I could have went back into the studio, but I was broke. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I loved the fact that I was doing like the ministry side of everything and all of that. But the reality was that I was just like trying to figure out the next move. And I got to a point where I realized that some of the things that I was doing didn't have the right heart behind them. I was just trying to make some money, and I knew that my music could sell, you know? And I prayed a prayer, man. I said, God, if this is why I'm doing this, then take the desire away from me. I don't want to do this because I need to make money so my family can have food and clothes and shelter and all that stuff. And a guy that I really respected, man, that's an older dude that's been in the ministry for a long time, came up to me out of the blue. He didn't hear my prayer, none of that. That same day came up to me and was like, hey, man, how's your family doing? I was like, good, doing good. He was like, check this out, man. I just want to tell you I'm proud of everything that you're doing. He was like, but you need to get a job. Like, what? He was like, it would be good for you to get a job. He was like, and I appreciate what you're doing in ministry. You can continue to do that, but your family needs insurance, and you need to be able to put some food on the table. This guy knew nothing about me. I don't know how in the world. I know my wife didn't talk to him. I know none of that stuff happened. But no matter what, that was actually one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. I was still able to make music. I was still able to do ministry. I still have done music the entire time. No, I'm not like this big name that everybody knows, but it's been effective. I've seen a lot of people's lives change. I've traveled outside of the country, in the country. I don't sell 1 million records, but I know that thousands and thousands of people have been impacted by what God has been able to do through me and my band. And I'm happy about that. I've got a family that loves me and that is excited and proud of the things that we've been able to do. And I've been able to be there for my family as opposed to on the road. You know what I mean? And that's been important.
Yeah, man, dude, that's like it's so inspirational. I mean, just the humility that you had, you know, in prayer before God, seeking His will. Because I did the same thing. I made a major life change going on 8 years when I felt led to go into business for myself, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't like my selfish ambition to do it, that it was like, God, I just remember praying and fasting and just talking with people within my spiritual circle. Like, hey man, just, I want to, pray for me. I'm praying for discernment and wisdom and guidance and all that. And so I relate to that. And, what's cool is that a lot of like things that sprung out from it. Yeah. I mean, with your company, the printing well, like I'm assuming like, I don't even know if you were even thinking of starting a printing company at that point in your life, but then for where you've grown, and I know that it's been growing like crazy, because every time I talk to this dude, you're just like late night getting stuff done for clients, getting new clients and all that. So how did the printing well come from that point in life?
Beautiful. Yeah. Man, I feel like I've lived like 16 different lives, it feels like, man, because there's so many different facets, man. But yeah, that actually came because it came out of, really, if I be honest, and I don't think my wife even knows this, we started the printing well to give her something to do. Honestly, you know what I mean? Like, we had a very traumatic situation happen in our lives, one of those things that, they call it a Euroclidin, a really big something that happens that changes the course of your life. I don't want to go into the details of it, but it was huge, and it affected my wife really, really bad. And right before that, she was a nursing assistant at a nursing home, and she kind of left that position, and she really wasn't doing much. And I know that would have been a death sentence to her. You know what I'm saying? Just emotionally and mentally. And I was like, we need something. And we'd been talking about starting a business anyway. At the time, I didn't realize that, I went, even when I was in high school, I went to an art school. I was a graphic artist, and I did all kinds of stuff when I was younger. But it was one of the big things in my life. I thought I had a scholarship to Maryland Institute College of Art back then. Didn't pan out. But the point is, I didn't realize that all these things were going to connect when it came to like the printing world and what all happened. But I had a neighbor who had just sold off a couple of businesses, and he actually started a franchise with a big moving company in Florida. And one of the things that he was trying to get off the ground was a printing company of his own. And he was, just trying to get rid of all of the excess stuff because he wanted to focus on this franchise. And he had this one printer that he was selling, and he threw it on like Facebook Marketplace or whatever, right? So this was like, just like maybe 4 years back, something like that. And he was like, man. And I looked at it, and just something hit. And it's like, you know what? Maybe we should try this, right? And I talked to my wife, and I was like, hey, babe, do you want to, take a little money and invest in this thing and see where it goes? And we prayed about it for a couple of days, and, we ended up doing it. And it's so crazy, bro. Like, as soon as we brought that printer, things started to move. Like, it wasn't, it's not like, everybody wants that fantasy business story where it's like, as soon as I did this, everything just, and I was a multimillionaire in 6 months, right? And honestly, in my thoughts, I was like, yeah, I'm smart enough, I'm going to make this thing go, right? Things started to move, but then they would die off, and then they would move, and then they would die off. And thank God I kept my day job, because we would have been really like in the slump, right? In the slums, right? But anyway, we ended up we started out as like this t-shirt company that was doing its own designs, and everyone would just always say, man, those designs are great, but can you print this for me? Right? And we were like, okay. So we'd print that thing, and then we'd continue to advertise and make no money off of our stuff, and then be constantly printing other people's stuff. Mm-hmm. Eventually, we started to realize that it just made sense to pivot, shift into, a different mode of, servicing other people. And we started getting happy about it because we recognized that that was a passion, right? To be able to serve other people with what we're doing, serving businesses and things of that nature. But to kind of fast forward the story just a little bit, we grew. Once we started to realize that servicing other people was really where our passion was and what was best for our business, we started to grow tremendously. We started to meet a lot of people, and it's crazy how quickly things happen, how much we've learned, how many of the right connections we've made over time. We've made a lot of mistakes also, and you do that in business, right? You try something, you go wholehearted at it, and you just got to figure out where those places are where it's time to pivot or time to press. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you think it's time to press, but it might be time to pivot, right? And sometimes you want to pivot, but it's probably time to lean in more to that move and try a little bit harder. And it's sometimes hard to decide and figure that out. But eventually we made some really good decisions, and we're at a point now, where we're moving into a new season, even in that business, right? So what we do now is we service small and mid-sized businesses on all their print shop needs and stuff like that. And it's kind of very specific how we do that, because we're a lot less like some of the other print shops in the way that we service people. We more like to partner with our clients, as opposed to just being this ad hoc, get this thing out of the cart type of business. But really, really focused in on making sure that they're successful in their branding and their marketing materials and whatever else that they need, and partnering with them in that way.
Let's talk about one of the unique aspects. Like, you got a lot of family in the
Oh, yeah.
business.
Oh, yeah.
What's
absolutely.
that like?
Initially, it was frustrating. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I've talked to a lot of business owners that have tried to run businesses with their family. And until I realized that it's almost like non-existent, that family businesses can thrive, I didn't realize how blessed we were to be able to function in that way, right? So, the majority of the core people in our business are family. And we've got, other people that also work in the business as well. But the reality is this was built up as a family business, and it's been amazing to watch my family go from hating me because I'm a bit hard when it comes to making sure that things are done a certain way, or trying to get things done, or trying to change their mind about how they see what we're doing, right? And seeing the vision for what you're doing. As a leader of anything, I think the biggest issues that you have are, number one, trying to change people's minds, and number two, trying to get them to catch on to the vision so that you can move, right? Because if you don't bring your team along with you, then you're going to struggle. And I think that those have been some of the biggest struggles, especially as family, because they know all the intricate parts of you. And that, when you're in a corporate environment, or an environment with people who don't necessarily know all your details, sometimes it's a little easier, because you instantly get respect as the owner, the president, the CEO, whatever. But when it's your family, like my oldest daughter, she works for us, right? So if we get into an issue, right, over whatever, she still has to work. You know what I mean? I still have to go to her and give her direction on something. She still has to receive it and be able to carry it out, right? So that type of stuff is it has been a process, trying to learn how to separate personal life from business life, right? But it's been good. It's been good. I feel like my family, they're very special people. I really appreciate the fact that they're able to work with me in the way that they do. They're really humble in that sense. And sometimes I got to go back and apologize and all that other stuff, but it's been good. And it's funny, because the other people that work alongside of us as well, and I say that because I try to involve all of our employees in a lot of the decision making, especially at the place where we are, because we're so young, right? But it's like a big family. It really is. It's like extended family, kind of.
So of all the things you got going on,
Mm-hmm.
you got the multinational corporate job programmer, you got the music,
Mm-hmm.
you got your business, you got the stuff that I get you to do with me,
Right.
put on event. How do you balance that?
I don't. No. In a sense, that kind of is an accurate answer. I think that someone mentioned, I don't know if it was Steve Harvey or somebody. I don't want to put anybody out there like that and lie about them, but it was somebody I heard just in passing saying something that, that they don't really believe in a balance necessarily, right, in that sense. And it's not so much that I agree wholeheartedly with that thought, but I will say this. I feel like everything I do is very important, right? I feel like prayer is my biggest thing, right? I'm the type of guy that, and I mean, whether you're a Christian or not, if you somewhat believe in God, I think that prayer would be vitally important for you, even if it's God, show me if you're real, right? Because that was my first prayer, actually. But my whole thing is that in a lot of the decisions that I make, I try to pray about them, and then I let God lead my heart as to whether I should be doing it or not, right? Because there's a lot that we can do in this life, but the time that we have is all that we have. That makes up our life, yeah. Right? So what you do at that time is vitally important.
Man, that's deep.
So for me, I look at the things that I have right now going on, and then I try to prioritize them as best as I can, and try to set processes, people in place to help, all of that stuff, because there's only so much bandwidth that I have, right? But the reality is, man, sometimes it's day by day. sometimes I'm not in as good of a place as I am on other days, right? From a focus perspective and all of that. You know what I mean? So I've learned myself. I pay attention to myself, and I try to just kind of get better at managing myself and my time and my organization on a daily basis. And like I said, I pivot a lot. I pivot a lot, when I find that something may not be working well. I think one of the main things that I do, and this helps me I guess, figuring out what I'm going to give my time to as well, is that I've made a decision that I'm going to be responsible for the things I commit myself to. And if I make a commitment, then I've made a commitment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And try to follow up on those things. So, I don't always make the mark. There are times where I miss it, but I'm always striving to do better every day. So, and that's hopefully I somewhat answer that question.
Oh, that's good, man. Let's go back to music. Is there future plans to get more back into like rapping, or are you kind of more focused on the rock music, the rock side of music? Like, what's your...
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Now, the good thing that I appreciate from the band is that I still get to rap, right? And I do some rapping on a lot of the songs and things of that nature. But yeah, I do miss, the traditional style of rap and hip hop that I've done in the past. And the band knows that. When we first started out, one of the things I told them, the rest of the guys, was, look, man, if you have something, a passion in your heart that you want to do, we're not just a band, we're brothers. We're here to support each other. I don't feel like you're stepping away from us. If you have something that you want to do, just let us know and we can see how we can make that work. You know what I mean? One of our guitarists, he's also a solo artist that does very much heavier style, right, than we do as a band. And he puts out music on the side, and we support it wholeheartedly. We push it. We help him market it. We help all of that stuff because, we're brothers, at the end of the day. So for me, when it comes to rap, they all know that I still have that in my heart. I've got a buddy of mine who used to be signed to a label on the West Coast. His name's Caboose. He used to be signed to Syntax Records, which is like this kind of big West Coast Christian hip-hop label back in the day, right? He's actually the first Christian hip-hop artist that was in The Source ever.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
Wow.
he was advertising The Source. And he's a good buddy of mine. We've done a couple of songs together, and we've always talked about trying to do a record together. And actually, in January, we're going to start working on an EP. So he's got some time away. He may even come down here to Florida and start working on the record with me here. Yeah, he's just a great guy, and that's going to be kind of my intro back into that whole rap hip hop world again. I think I need him to kind of help me to switch gears back again, because I'm so eclectic right now with my music that it's hard to switch gears back into what I used to do.
This is something I've been thinking about is, they say seasons come and go, but I also feel like some seasons come back
Right.
around. And like for me, like DJing, like I just bought some new gear. I've been taking lessons with DJ PM Jesus. Shout out Mixed Theory Studios, where we're at right now shooting this video. And I stopped for about 20 years, and I've just been inspired, just hanging out with this dude and doing more into music, putting events together. Went out, bought some new gear, taking some scratch lessons and stuff. I don't know if I would ever go DJ, like a DJ at an event or whatever, but just getting some turntables again and a mixer and equipment and just like being on them and playing around with them, man, it's very fulfilling to me.
Yeah.
And so it's a season that has come back in my life that was gone for like 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of like that story you just shared with your homie about, doing the EP and stuff together.
Yeah.
So how do you think that you resonate with that thought about seasons like come and go, but sometimes some seasons come back in life?
No, absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. It's so funny you keep bringing up seasons. There's going to be another shameless plug, by the way. Scarlet Letter Society has an album out called Crazy, right? And one of the songs on the record is called Seasons. And Caboose, my buddy that I was just talking about, is on that song. He actually killed me on that song. It's really good. But the song is amazing. It's featuring my band, Caboose, and Big Phil. If you're a Christian hip hop artist, you probably know of him. He's doing a lot of stuff right now. But yeah, that song kind of speaks to what you're saying also, right? But yeah, seasons do come back around. I absolutely believe that. I believe that that is true of me when it comes to the rap thing. I agree. It may be true of you with the DJ thing. I think you're gonna DJ in front of people again, man. I saw you when you just started back up, and you already seem to get the
That was
hang of it,
horrible.
man.
Horrible.
Nah,
It's an
bro.
embarrassment.
Nah, not at all. But yeah, I think that seasons definitely do come around for certain things, right? We've got a lot of choices in life, man. People have a lot of choices. I think that if you place your mind, if you're interested in doing something, you give it that effort. I think there's a whole lot that can happen that you just wouldn't expect. I've seen that happen in my life, and it's one of the reasons why I've never allowed certain things like whether it's whatever society would label it, whether it's age, whether it's finances, whether it's I don't have this resource or that resource to limit what I may go after, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I love where you took that. So this is like the last kind of a more in depth thing I want to get into before we get into some light stuff. Is we're both same age roughly. You're born in '78. I'm in '79, and
Thanks for pointing that out.
but man, we look good for mid-40s.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's like so many people like stop pursuing things,
Right.
and
yeah.
like you and I, we're still pursuing stuff.
Absolutely.
Like, and that's what I listen to a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk. I know he's really big on that. Like, man, we still haven't lived half of our life yet.
Absolutely.
Obviously, we don't know when we're going to take our last breath.
Right.
But man, I'm expecting to live to 100. If God willing, and just to know that, man, life isn't over. There's still half of our life left to do things.
Yeah.
And, you inspire me in that way, man. So that's kind of like what really made me connect with you is like, you're going out there, you just started the printing well, not even that long ago, 4 or 5 years ago, you're making music, you're doing all these things. So, respect that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that's major for people to understand. I mean, I think the way I look at it also is that if you're still breathing, you still have the strength in your body, you still have the desire to do a thing and go after it, because I've seen people come and go, you know what I mean? And I'm just, not to be too morbid, but just in life in general. I mean, we've been around long enough to see the young leave here early, and to see the old stay longer than some of their family members. I remember when one time I was going to the YMCA to work out, and in Jacksonville there's this YMCA called the Brooks YMCA, where there's like a medical center and a lot of people getting treatments and stuff. And I learned a lot just going there and watching. Sometimes it's good to just watch what's happening around you. And one of the things I watched and learned is that, first of all, I want to take care of my body because I want the quality of my life. If I can help it, sometimes things happen, but I want the quality of my life to be pretty good as long as I'm here, right?
Yep.
And then another thing that I've learned is that, I saw a lady there that she was having a birthday party. They were having one for her. She was 101 years old. She had outlived everyone in her family that she knew, like 3 generations. And I mean, that part was sad, but the reality is that this lady has done a lot in her life. She had stories to tell about things that she'd done in her life. So you don't know when you're going to leave or when the time is up, but the reality is that if you're here, there's still stuff to do. There's still people to touch everywhere you go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everybody affects everybody, We're
doubt.
affecting each other in this room.
All right, man. You mentioned some of your rock influences, and I'm going to test you on this.
Oh, don't.
All right. So you mentioned Guns N' Roses,
Okay.
Aerosmith. What's your favorite Guns N' Roses song?
Oh, man. Why would you do that? Because you got to
I'm
understand
testing you,
something.
man. I'm testing you. I'm seeing if you're being honest with me.
No, I'm going to be honest with you,
Okay.
but it's going to sound cliche. Because it's going to be Welcome to the Jungle,
All
right?
man.
So, and I'm going to tell you why. Because like I said, from where I came from, it's like I'm only getting to hear the Guns N' Roses. I didn't have a Guns N' Roses record. You know what I mean? I didn't have that, or I should say the tape.
The tape.
Right?
I had all the Guns N' Roses tapes.
So I didn't have a tape. So there's a lot that I couldn't listen to really appreciate, right? It was just the stuff that they actually put out that became either singles or they had a video for or whatever, because I'm listening to MTV and stuff like that. So even though I did like their stuff, like I liked Cranberry, Zombie, like these are different generations of music. I liked the Dookie record from Green Day. That's more alternative. But you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like these are more of the, I don't have that underground or that wide breadth of knowledge of every rock band, right? But definitely, right, not like how I had with hip hop, right? Yeah.
All right. So last question here.
What's up?
When we play ball again, 1-on-1, who's winning?
Oh, you already know the answer to that.
All right, hey, man, you know me.
Right.
So I've been thinking I'm 5'9" my whole life, but that's probably not even true.
Can I say something before you wrap it up?
Go ahead.
You play like you're 6'2". I got to give it to him, man. The guy can ball, right? He's got a great shot. He knows where his places are on the floor. So I got to give it to you. I'm not going to let this podcast go out without giving you that.
I appreciate that, man.
And
We
I'm
ended up
also
on a good note.
Yeah.
Now, man, I really appreciate you, everything that you're doing from the music side, from the entrepreneur side, from the professional side, but, you know, more importantly, as a father, as a family man. I know you got the new one coming along. That's exciting. I couldn't even imagine
starting over.
I got 2 girls who are teenagers, and I'm like, all right, man, one's going to high school in 6 months, man. I'm counting down the days to get them out of the house. Now you got to like reset. Yeah. That must be wild, but not but a blessing though.
Yeah.
For real, man. You're a great dad, great husband. Really appreciate you. How can people look you up online and know more about your services, your music stuff, and everything?
Man, okay. So for all your printing needs, if you're a business owner, you want to partner with The Printing Well, go to www.theprintingwell.com. Or, man, I wish I remembered our 1-800 number. But either way, just check out the website or just Google us and you'll find us. Also, for the band Scarlet Letter Society, you can go to scarletlsociety.com. Or you can go to crazylovemusic.com and find us there. And all of our social media links will be on any of those pages. We're on Facebook, Instagram. We're starting some TikTok stuff. It is what it is.
All right, tell them about Set Free. Tell them the lineup.
Set Free. Oh, man, the lineup is crazy. So we've got us. We've got DJ Noah. We've got DJ Titus. We've got Uncle Reese hosting the event like we mentioned before. We've got DJ Will spinning on the 1s and 2s whenever things are going on. We've got, obviously, the illustrious, the great What Up RG from Reach Records. Like, honestly, man, his music is dope. I've really been digging into him a lot lately and just really checking him out. So I'm excited to see What Up RG when he shows up. True. And we got Young Drew. My bad, man. Yeah, man. So Jacksonville, Duval's own Young Drew, man. So, you know, if you guys are going to be stepping out January 27th, hopefully you're stepping into place. Murray Hill Theater, 7 p.m. It's going to be on fire.
Duval, ATL.
Yeah.
Represent.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Setfree.co.
Setfree.co.
Get tickets, 25 GA, $50 VIP.
Yeah, the VIP will be crazy too. So
VIP Q&A with What Up RG picture event. We got some giveaways. You can find the merch. Represent that right there. You know, we gotta have shirts, hoodies, stickers, you name it. It's gonna be a dope event. So get your tickets. Set Free. Appreciate you. Thanks for coming out. You checking out Free Factor Podcast. I'm Scott DeVore. My close friends call me Free. Hit us up. Check out more episodes. Like, comment, subscribe.